I stood frozen in my childhood living room as Dad's face turned purple with rage. "Get out, you lowlife!" he screamed, throwing my laptop bag at my feet. Mom sobbed behind him, calling me uneducated trash who brings shame to this family. They thought I was still the college dropout working minimum wage jobs. They had no idea about my software company, the $20 million in revenue, or the beach house in Florida. I picked up my bag, said, "Okay," and walked out forever. 5 years before that devastating night, I sat cross-legged on my Stanford dorm room floor, surrounded by computer parts and half-eaten pizza slices. My roommate, Jennifer, was out partying again while I debugged code for the 14th hour straight. The blue glow from 3 monitors illuminated my exhausted face as I put the finishing touches on something that would change everything. "Polly, you need to sleep," my sweet mate Caroline said, poking her head through the door. "You've been at this for 3 days." I couldn't stop, though. Not when I was this close. My fingers flew across the keyboard as lines of code transformed into an elegant solution that had been dancing just beyond my reach for months. The AI-powered inventory management system I'd created wasn't just another student project. It was revolutionary. It could predict supply needs, automate ordering, and reduce waste by up to 60%. Small businesses could compete with major corporations using my software. The next morning, I made the hardest decision of my 21 years. I walked into my advisor's office and withdrew from Stanford University. Dr. Peterson's disappointment was nothing compared to what awaited me at home. "You're throwing your life away." My father Frank's voice shook our modest 2-story house in Sacramento. His calloused hands, worn from 30 years of running, Sullivan's Hardware slammed down on our kitchen table. "We sacrificed everything for your education." My mother Grace sat at the table, tears streaming down her librarian's carefully composed face. "What will people think? What do I tell the other mothers at church? That my daughter is a quitter?" "I'm not quitting," I tried to explain, clutching my laptop like a lifeline. "I've created something incredible. This software could help thousands of businesses like Dad's store." Frank's face darkened. "Don't you dare compare your computer games to real work. I built this family's foundation with these hands, not by staring at screens. You're ungrateful, selfish, and you're breaking your mother's heart." The silence that followed was deafening. My younger brother Marcus smirked from the doorway, adjusting his business school polo shirt. "Guess I'm the family success story now." I retreated to my childhood bedroom, the weight of their disapproval crushing. But as I opened my laptop and saw my code elegant and powerful, I knew I'd made the right choice. Sometimes the path forward means disappointing those who can't see your vision. That night, something strange happened. I noticed my external hard drive's access light blinking when I hadn't touched it. Checking the logs, my blood ran cold. Someone had been copying my files. The timestamps matched Jennifer's keycard entries perfectly. My roommate, the pre-law student who always complained about being broke, had been stealing my work. I confronted her the next morning as she stumbled in from another party. Planning to enter the entrepreneurship competition with my code, her face went white, then red with defiance. "You can't prove anything. Besides, you dropped out. You won't even be eligible to compete." I already submitted copies to the patent office. I lied smoothly, watching her eyes widen. "Try to use any of it and you'll face legal consequences." She moved out that afternoon, leaving me alone with my decision and a future that suddenly seemed both terrifying and limitless. My studio apartment in San Jose was 300 square feet of pure determination. Water stains decorated the ceiling like abstract art, and the radiator clanged loud enough to wake the dead. But it was mine. More importantly, it was cheap enough that I could afford it while juggling 3 minimum wage jobs. Mornings started at 4:30 sharp. I'd code for 2 hours before catching the bus to my first job at a local bakery. The owner, Mrs. Chen, never asked why a Stanford dropout was frosting cupcakes, and I appreciated her silence. From there, I'd rush to my afternoon shift at a call center, then finish with a closing shift at a 24-hour gym. "You look terrible." My coworker at the gym. David commented one night as I dozed off while wiping down equipment. "When do you sleep?" "Sleep is for people without dreams," I mumbled, forcing myself to stay upright. The truth was, I slept maybe 4 hours on good nights. Every spare moment went into refining my software. I taught myself business through YouTube videos, learned about incorporation from library books, and figured out marketing by studying successful companies online. Ramen became my primary food group, supplemented by day-old bakery items Mrs. Chen secretly saved for me. My family had made their position clear: no contact unless I came to my senses and returned to school. The only updates I received came through my cousin Sarah's occasional texts. Marcus had landed an investment banking internship. My parents bragged about him at every family gathering. My empty chair at holidays spoke volumes about their disappointment. The loneliness was crushing. Some nights I'd stare at my phone thumb hovering over Dad's number. But then I'd remember his words, see the disgust in his eyes, and I'd channel that pain into code instead. Everything changed on a rainy Thursday evening. I'd sent out my 500th pitch email that week, my eyes burning from exhaustion. Most went unanswered. The few responses I received were polite rejections. But as I was about to close my laptop, a new email appeared. "Interesting proposal. Let's meet. Richard Blackstone, Blackstone Ventures." My hands shook as I Googled him. Richard Blackstone was Silicon Valley royalty, a venture capitalist who'd turned dozen startups into billion-dollar companies. Why was he interested in my pitch? The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday at his office in Palo Alto. I spent my last $40 on a second-hand blazer from Goodwill and practiced my presentation until I could recite it backwards. But when I walked into that gleaming conference room, Richard's first words threw me completely off balance. "I know you didn't mean to send this to me," he said, lounging in his chair like a king on a throne. "Your email was clearly intended for Richardson at Blue Mountain Capital. Similar email addresses." My heart sank. Even my success was accidental. However, he continued, a shark smile spreading across his face. "I'm intrigued. Your software is brilliant. Raw, unpolished, but brilliant. I'm prepared to offer you $2 million in funding." $2 million. More money than I'd ever imagined. I could quit my jobs, hire developers, scale immediately. My hands trembled under the table as I tried to process the number. "There are conditions," Richard added, sliding a thick contract across the table. "I'll need 80% equity and controlling interest. You'll step down as CEO and take a junior developer role. I have someone more experienced in mind to run things." The words hit like ice water. 80%. Step down. Junior role. He wanted to steal my company before it even properly existed. "I need time to review this." I managed my voice steadier than my hands. "Of course. You have 48 hours. After that, the offer expires." His smile never wavered. "Not many dropouts get chances like this, Polly. Don't waste it." I left that office with the contract burning in my bag. $2 million. Security. Validation. Everything I thought I wanted. But as I sat in my tiny apartment that night, reading through pages of legal jargon designed to strip me of everything I'd built, I made my second life-changing decision. I was going to do this alone. Rejecting Richard Blackstone's offer felt like jumping off a cliff without checking for a parachute first. But sometimes the scariest decisions lead to the greatest rewards. I sent a polite email declining his generous proposal and immediately threw myself into bootstrapping my company. "You turned down $2 million, David asked incredulously during our shift at the gym. "Are you insane?" Maybe I was, but I'd rather own 100% of something small than 20% of someone else's vision. With renewed determination, I refined my cold calling strategy. Instead of casting a wide net, I researched specific pain points for mid-sized retail businesses. I studied their quarterly reports, found their inefficiencies, and tailored each pitch to solve their exact problems. Call number 473 changed everything. Margaret Winters, CEO of a regional sporting goods chain, actually listened to my entire pitch. We're hemorrhaging money on inventory mismanagement, she admitted. Our current system is from the Stone Age. How quickly can you implement? 2 weeks for the pilot program. I promised, my heart racing. If you're not satisfied after 30 days, full refund. No refund needed, Margaret said. If this works, I want exclusive access for 6 months before you sell to my competitors. The contract was worth $1.2 million for the first year. I sat in my apartment staring at the signed agreement, tears streaming down my face. All those rejections, all those 16-hour days, all that ramen, it had led to this moment. I hired my first 2 employees within a week. Amid a brilliant back-end developer who'd been laid off from a major tech company, and Rosa, a UI designer who believed in the vision enough to take a pay cut. We worked out of a tiny office in Palo Alto that was really just a converted storage unit, but it was ours. "Polly, you need to see this." Rosa called out one afternoon, her voice tight with concern. She'd been researching our market competitors. "Sullivan's Hardware in Sacramento, isn't that?" My father's store filled the screen. The local news article detailed their struggles against Big Mart's new location. Sales down 40%, staff reduced by half. Longtime customers apologizing as they chose cheaper prices over loyalty. That night, I created a shell company called NorCal Business Solutions and placed an order for $50,000 worth of inventory from Sullivan's Hardware. The items would be donated to local schools and community centers. It was just profitable enough to keep them afloat without raising suspicions. Large order came in today. I overheard Dad telling someone on the phone when I called, pretending to be a wrong number just to hear his voice. Some company buying bulk supplies monthly now. Might just survive this Big Mart situation after all. The relief in his voice made every sacrifice worth it. I set up automatic monthly orders carefully calculated to supplement their income without seeming suspicious. My parents might have cut me off, but I wouldn't let them lose everything they'd built. Success came faster than expected. Margaret's glowing recommendation opened doors I couldn't have imagined. By month 6, we had 12 major clients. Revenue projections showed $2.5 million by year's end. I moved to a slightly larger apartment, 500 square feet of luxury, and bought myself a reliable used Honda. "We should celebrate," Amit suggested after landing our biggest client yet. "You've built something incredible here." But celebrating felt premature. Late at night, I'd still check my father's store's website, making sure they were staying afloat. I'd scroll through Grace's Facebook, seeing her library events, noticing the stress lines deepening around her eyes. Marcus posted constantly about his banking success, each update more boastful than the last. And there I was, invisible to them, succeeding beyond their wildest dreams. The real test came when a reporter from TechCrunch reached out for a feature story on Silicon Valley's hidden gems. My first instinct was to decline. What if my family saw it? But Amit convinced me that press coverage would accelerate our growth. "Just use your professional name," Rosa suggested. "Polyas, keep it mysterious." The article ran with a silhouetted photo and no personal details. It focused on the technology and business model, not my background. But as I read my words in print describing our journey and vision, I felt a shift. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was protecting my peace while building my empire. "You know what the best part is?" Amit asked after our newest client implementation went flawlessly. "What?" I replied, reviewing our financial projections that showed clear profit margins. "You did this without compromising. No venture capital vultures, no equity sacrifices, just pure determination and brilliant code." He was right. But the cost of that independence was measured in more than just sleepless nights and cheap noodles. It was measured in empty chairs at Christmas dinner and a father's voice I only heard through secretly recorded wrong numbers. Still, as I approved another anonymous order to Sullivan's Hardware, I knew I'd chosen correctly. Some victories are sweeter when no one's watching. Some successes matter more when they're built on your own terms. And sometimes, the best way to honor those who don't believe in you is to quietly ensure they never face the consequences of their limited vision. Thanksgiving arrived like a test I hadn't studied for, bringing with it an invitation I couldn't refuse. Cousin Sarah's wedding had given me an excuse to miss last year's gathering, but this time Aunt Martha called directly. "Your mother needs you there," she said, her tone suggesting this wasn't a request. "It's been 2 years, Polly. Time to stop this nonsense." I stood before my closet in my San Jose apartment, selecting clothes carefully. Nothing too nice, that would raise questions, but nothing too shabby either. I had some pride left. I settled on a simple sweater and slacks from Target, the kind of outfit that screamed, trying but struggling. The drive to Sacramento felt both endless and too short. My Honda's dashboard displayed success metrics from our latest client implementation, while I mentally prepared for 3 hours of judgment disguised as concern. I parked down the street, not wanting questions about my reliable car when I was supposed to be failing. Polly. My mother's embrace was stiff, formal, like hugging a distant acquaintance. "You look thin." "Working a lot," I replied, which wasn't a lie. The house smelled of turkey and disappointment. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. The same faded curtains, the same family photos where my graduation pictures had been quietly removed, the same judgment hanging in the air like fog. "Still doing your computer thing?" Uncle Robert asked, carving turkey with the authority of a man who'd never missed a family gathering. "Something like that," I mumbled, accepting a plate piled high with food I was too anxious to eat. Marcus held court at the adult table, now regaling everyone with stories from Goldman Sachs. "Just closed a $10 million deal," he boasted, accepting congratulations like a king receiving tribute. "The partners are fast-tracking me for promotion." "See," Dad said, not quite looking at me, "that's what real education gets you: stability, respect, a future." I pushed mashed potatoes around my plate while Cousin Jessica discussed her pediatric residency, and Cousin Brian detailed his promotion at Microsoft. Each success story felt like another nail in the coffin of my family's respect for me. "And what exactly are you doing these days, Polly?" Aunt Martha's question cut through the chatter like a blade. "Your mother mentioned something about multiple jobs." "I'm in tech," I said simply. "Oh, like customer service?" She nodded sympathetically. "Well, someone has to answer those calls, though I'm sure you regret not finishing your degree now." Grace interjected quickly. "She's exploring her options. Aren't you, sweetheart? It's never too late to go back to school." The conversation shifted to Jessica's upcoming wedding, and I became invisible again. But invisibility granted observation privileges. I watched Marcus pour his 4th glass of wine before dinner ended, noticed how his laugh was too loud, his stories too polished, his phone constantly buzzing with messages he'd check with increasing anxiety. I should help with dishes. I offered, escaping to the kitchen where I could breathe. Mom followed, cornering me by the sink. "Your father means well. He just wants what's best for you." What's best for me, or what looks best for him? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Her face hardened. "Don't be smart with me, young lady. We've given you every opportunity. The least you could do is show some gratitude." I scrubbed plates in silence, each one representing another family member who'd written me off. Through the kitchen window, I could see Marcus in the backyard having an intense phone conversation. His gestures were agitated, desperate even. "Everything okay with Marcus?" I asked carefully. Grace's pride surfaced instantly. "Of course he's doing wonderfully. Unlike some people, he appreciates his advantages." After dinner, the family gathered in the living room for the traditional "what we're thankful for" circle. Each person shared their gratitude for health, success, family unity. When my turn came, 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me with varying degrees of pity and curiosity. "I'm thankful for the chance to forge my own path," I said quietly, "and for hard lessons that teach us who we really are." Dad's scoff was audible. "Lessons? Is that what we're calling failure now?" "Frank," Mom warned, but he was already building steam. "No, Grace. She needs to hear this. We're not doing her any favors by pretending her lifestyle is acceptable. When I was her age, I'd already bought my first delivery truck, married. Your mother had a business plan." When you were my age, I countered, surprising myself with my steady voice. A college degree wasn't required for every entry-level position, houses didn't cost 15 times the median salary, and building a business didn't require competing with global corporations. Silence fell like a hammer. Uncle Robert cleared his throat. Aunt Martha clutched her pearls. Marcus chose that moment to stumble back inside his phone call, finished, but his distress obvious. "Who wants pie?" Mom chirped desperately. I lasted another hour nibbling dessert while cousins discussed vacation plans I'd never be invited to join. As I prepared to leave, Dad pulled me aside in the hallway. "I heard Sullivan's Hardware is struggling," I said softly. "Big Mart's really hurting local businesses." His face flushed. "We're managing fine. Not that it's your concern anymore. If you ever needed—" "What computer help?" His laugh was bitter. "That's your solution to everything, isn't it? Maybe if you'd studied business instead of playing with code, you'd understand real work." I left with a Tupperware container of leftovers I'd throw away and promises to stay in touch that everyone knew were lies. But as I drove back to San Jose, something felt different. I'd expected their rejection to hurt more. Instead, I felt free. My phone buzzed with a text from Rosa. "Client loved the new feature. They want to expand to all locations. You're a genius." I smiled, merging onto the highway. My family was thankful for their illusions of success and stability. But I was thankful for something else entirely, the strength to build something real, even if I had to do it alone. And if they couldn't see my worth now when I was anonymously keeping their dreams afloat, perhaps they never would. The realization should have been devastating. Instead, it was liberating. Some bridges are meant to burn. Some distances are necessary for growth. And some successes are sweeter when they're yours alone. That night, I increased the monthly orders to Sullivan's Hardware by 20%. Not out of guilt or obligation, but because success meant being able to help without needing credit. Even if they never knew, even if they never cared, I'd keep them afloat. Because that's what real family does, even when family forgets what's real. The coffee shop on University Avenue was meant to be neutral ground. Marcus had texted me through LinkedIn, of all places, probably the only platform where he could find me after I'd blocked the family on everything else. His message was brief. "Need to talk. Please. It's important." 6 months had passed since that Thanksgiving disaster. My company had just closed Series A funding, $5 million from a group of angel investors who actually respected my vision and expertise. We'd moved into real offices in downtown Palo Alto, hired 12 more employees, and our client list read like a who's who of retail innovation. But none of that mattered as I sat across from my younger brother, noting how his designer suit couldn't hide the desperation in his eyes. "Thanks for coming." Marcus started his usual arrogance, replaced by something I'd never seen before: humility. "I know I don't deserve your time." "What do you want, Marcus?" I kept my voice neutral, professional. This wasn't a sister meeting her brother. This was a CEO protecting her company. He fidgeted with his platinum watch, a Goldman Sachs signing bonus he'd flaunted all over social media. "I need help. Financial help." "Aren't you Wall Street's golden boy, fast-tracked for partner?" His laugh was hollow. "That's what everyone thinks. That's what I need them to think." The story tumbled out like water through a broken dam. Marcus had been fired 3 months ago for insider trading. Nothing prosecutable. Goldman Sachs preferred to handle things quietly. But career-ending nonetheless. He'd been pretending to go to work every day, sitting in public libraries in his suit, maintaining the facade while his savings evaporated. I've applied everywhere. The moment they call Goldman for references, I'm done. Blacklisted. $48,000 in student loans, rent on an apartment I can't afford, and Mom keeps asking when I'm buying a house like Cousin Brian. "Why come to me?" I asked, though I already knew. "Because you're the only one who actually made it out," he admitted. "I know about your company, Polly, not from the family. They still think you're answering phones somewhere. But I Googled you after that TechCrunch article. Quantum Logic Solutions. $20 million valuation. You built that from nothing. Part of me wanted to savor this moment, the golden child admitting defeat to the family disappointment. But looking at my brother's sunken eyes and trembling hands, all I felt was sadness for the waste of it all. How much do you need? $50,000, just to clear debts and start fresh. I'll pay you back, I swear. I've been learning to code thinking maybe tech is where I should have been all along. I pulled out my phone and initiated a wire transfer before I could second-guess myself. $50,000, no payback needed. Consider it a graduation gift I never gave you. Tears actually formed in Marcus's eyes. Polly, Thank you. I'll tell them. Mom and Dad. I'll tell them everything. About my situation, about your success. They should know what you've accomplished. That's not necessary, I said, but he was already shaking his head. It is. They've been so unfair to you. Let me at least try to make this right. We parted with the first genuine hug we'd shared since childhood. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to hope. Maybe Marcus could be the bridge to reconnection. Maybe the family could finally see me for who I was, not who they'd decided I should be. That hope lasted exactly 1 week. Polly, Amit's voice was unusually tense when he called me into our conference room. We have a situation. Security footage filled the screen. Our building's cameras had captured someone entering with a cloned keycard at 2 a.m. The figure was careful to avoid showing their face, but I recognized the watch. The same platinum Goldman Sachs watch Marcus couldn't stop fidgeting with. He accessed our client database. Rosa added her face grim. Downloaded financial records contact lists, even our proprietary code. The digital footprints are all over the servers. My hands shook as I reviewed the evidence. Multiple visits over 3 nights. Systematic copying of everything that made our company valuable. Everything a competitor would pay top dollar to acquire. There's more, Amit said quietly. We intercepted an email. He's been shopping our information to our biggest competitors, bidding war style. The betrayal cut deeper than any family rejection. I'd handed him salvation, and he'd used it to map our vulnerabilities. But worse was yet to come. That afternoon, chaos erupted. My parents arrived at our office building with 2 police officers in tow. Dad's face was purple with rage, while Mom clutched his arm, tears streaming down her face. There she is, Frank pointed at me through the glass doors, running her criminal operation in broad daylight. My employees froze watching this surreal scene unfold. I stepped outside, keeping my voice calm despite my racing heart. What's going on? Don't play innocent, Dad snarled. Marcus told us everything. The illegal downloads, the corporate espionage, how you're stealing from legitimate businesses, hacking into their systems. The police officers looked supremely uncomfortable. Ma'am, we received a report of cyber criminal activity at this address. The older one said apologetically. We need to ask you some questions. Of course, I replied smoothly. Would you like to see our business licenses, our client contracts, our awards from the California Innovation Council? As I led them through our offices, explaining our legitimate operations to increasingly embarrassed officers, the truth crystallized. Marcus hadn't just stolen our data, he'd crafted an elaborate lie to poison our parents against me further, probably to justify why he suddenly had money again or to cover his tracks if his theft was discovered. This is clearly a misunderstanding, the younger officer concluded after reviewing our paperwork. Family dispute, not criminal matter. We apologize for the disruption. But my parents weren't finished. As the police left, Frank turned on me with years of accumulated disappointment blazing in his eyes. Look at you, he spat. Lying to police now, too, Marcus saw the evidence. You're nothing but a thief hiding behind fancy offices. The only thief here is Marcus, I said quietly. Check your security footage from last week if you don't believe me. Mom gasped. How dare you accuse your brother? He's successful, respected. You're just jealous because he made something of himself while you dropped out and became this. I could have shown them evidence. Could have pulled up the security footage right there displayed Marcus's betrayal in high definition. But looking at their faces, so convinced of my guilt, so proud of their criminal son, I realized no amount of proof would matter. They'd chosen their truth long ago. "You need to leave now," I said firmly. "This is a place of business." "Hiding behind your stolen money," Dad sneered. "We know you've been sending anonymous payments to the store. What is it, guilt money? Trying to wash your dirty earnings through our legitimate business?" The fact that he'd discovered my help and twisted it into something shameful was the final straw. Every month I'd kept them afloat, and they'd transformed even that into evidence of my supposed crimes. "Those payments end today," I said coldly. "And if Marcus comes near this building again, I'll press charges for corporate espionage. Now leave, or I'll have security escort you out." The look of shock on their faces as security guards appeared was almost worth the public humiliation. They left hurling threats about lawyers and justice, while my employees pretended not to stare. Back in my office, I sat in stunned silence. Rosa knocked gently before entering. "We've changed all the key cards and passwords," she reported. "Legal is preparing cease and desist letters for any company that might have bought our data." "Thanks," I managed, my voice hollow. "For what it's worth," she added softly, "anyone can see you built this legitimately. Your family. They're fools not to recognize what you've accomplished." After she left, I pulled up the back end of our anonymous payment system. With 3 clicks, I canceled all future orders to Sullivan's Hardware. The screen confirmed, "Recurring payment terminated." Then I did something I should have done years ago. I blocked every family member's number, email, and social media. If they wanted to believe Marcus's lies, if they preferred their criminal son to their successful daughter, then they could live with those choices. But first, I had a company to protect. We spent the next week implementing new security measures, filing police reports for the theft, and reaching out to clients to assure them their data was safe. Most were understanding. A few were even impressed by how we handled the crisis. "You know what the silver lining is?" Ahmed asked during our crisis management meeting. "There's a silver lining to family betrayal and public humiliation. Now you're completely free," he said simply. "No more anonymous payments draining profits. No more emotional energy wasted on people who don't deserve it. Just you, this company, and a $20 million valuation that's about to go much higher." He was right, but that didn't make the betrayal sting less. I'd offered Marcus redemption, and he'd chosen destruction. I'd tried to save my family's business, and they'd accused me of being a criminal. Some lessons come at too high a price. Some bridges don't just burn, they explode. And sometimes the people who share your blood are the most dangerous to your dreams. But as I looked around my legitimate office at my dedicated team, at the awards on our walls, and the clients who believed in us, I realized something. Marcus might have stolen our data, but he couldn't steal what mattered. The vision, the determination, the ability to build something from nothing. Those were mine alone. And if my family preferred comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths, then they'd made their choice. Now it was time to live with the consequences. The police station's fluorescent lights made everything look washed out and tired, but nothing compared to the exhaustion I felt watching my parents realize their mistake. Officer Chen, the lead investigator, had just finished explaining that not only was my company legitimate, but that they'd potentially aided someone in corporate espionage by creating a distraction during Marcus's theft. "Your daughter runs one of the most innovative tech companies in Silicon Valley," Officer Chen said patiently. "We've verified all licenses, contracts, and operations. The only criminal activity here involves stolen data, and she's the victim, not the perpetrator." Dad's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally a rage that had nowhere productive to go. Mom clutched her purse like a lifeline, her worldview crumbling in real time. "This is obviously a misunderstanding," Grace managed weakly. "Marcus said he showed us evidence." "Ma'am, spreading false reports about criminal activity is a serious matter," Officer Chen warned. "Your daughter could press charges for harassment and defamation." "I won't be doing that," I interjected calmly. "I just want this to end." We left the station in strained silence. My employees had handled the disruption professionally, but I could feel their curious glances as we returned to the office. In our glass-walled conference room, my parents finally saw what I'd built: 23 employees working diligently, walls covered with industry awards and client testimonials, monitors displaying real-time analytics from Fortune 500 companies using our software. "This is all yours," Mom whispered, taking in the scope of it all. "Built from scratch," I confirmed. "No venture capital control, no family money, just code determination and about 1,000 packages of ramen." What happened next shocked everyone, including my employees, who were pretending not to watch through the glass walls. Instead of pride or congratulations, Frank's face contorted with rage I'd never seen before. "You hid this from us," he roared, slamming his fist on our expensive conference table. "All these years letting us worry, letting us think you were failing and you were here building this empire behind our backs. I tried to tell you at Thanksgiving." "Lies." He cut me off. "Just like the anonymous orders. Oh yes, I figured that out. NorCal Business Solutions. You think I'm stupid. You've been playing puppet master, pulling strings, making us dance for your amusement." Rosa knocked urgently. "Polly, should I call security?" "Give us 5 minutes," I said, though I wasn't sure why I was extending even that courtesy. Mom found her voice, and it was sharp with accusation. "How could you let us struggle? Let us worry ourselves sick about you? My sister thinks I failed as a mother. Do you know what I've endured at church? The pity—" "You cut me off," I reminded them. "Said I wasn't welcome unless I abandoned this dream." "Because we knew better." Dad's volume increased. 22 years of life experience versus our decades of wisdom, and you thought you knew everything. And now look, you've turned our own son against us with your success, made him desperate enough to steal. The logical gymnastics were breathtaking. Somehow Marcus's crimes were my fault for being successful. Their public humiliation was my fault for not broadcasting achievements they'd told me to abandon. Their struggling business was my fault for— Actually, I wasn't sure how they'd twisted that one, but I'm sure they'd found a way. "I need you to leave," I said quietly. "This is my place of business and you're disrupting my employees." "Your employees?" Mom spat the words like poison. "Too good for family now, hiding behind your success and your lawyers and your glass walls." "I want 60%, Dad announced suddenly. "Excuse me." "Of this company. 60% ownership. It's only fair. We raised you, fed you, sent you to Stanford. This success is built on our foundation." Ahmet, who'd been listening from outside, actually laughed loud enough to be heard through the glass. Several other employees quickly turned away, shoulders shaking. "You want majority ownership of my company, the one you called playing with computers, the one built after you disowned me." "We never formally disowned you," Dad said, as if semantics mattered. "And I've been in business longer than you've been alive. You need experienced leadership, someone who understands real commerce, not this digital nonsense." "Frank," I said, using his first name deliberately, "you run a hardware store. I run a tech company with 20 million in valuation. We're not even in the same universe." His face purpled. "How dare you—" "Security to conference room 1. I said into the intercom, finally done with this circus. As 2 guards appeared, Mom made one last desperate play. "We'll tell everyone, every family member, every friend, every person in Sacramento will know how you treated your parents. Tell them," I said simply. "Tell them I built a multi-million-dollar company while you called me trash. Tell them I tried to save your business anonymously while you accused me of crimes. Tell them everything. See who looks worse in that story." The security guards escorted them out, Dad shouting about lawyers and family obligation, while Mom wept dramatically for the benefit of onlookers. The office was silent after they left, everyone suddenly very interested in their screens. I sat in the empty conference room staring at the awards on the walls. Best Innovation in Retail Technology, Forbes 30 Under 30 nominee, Central Valley Entrepreneur of the Year. None of it had been enough to earn their respect. Nothing ever would be. "You okay?" Rosa asked, bringing me a cup of tea I didn't remember requesting. Did that really just happen? Did my father demand 60% of our company? While your mother accused you of being too successful, Amit added, joining us. It was like watching a masterclass in narcissistic parenting. The security footage is saved, Rosa said gently, in case you need it for legal purposes. But I was done with legal battles, family drama, and trying to prove my worth to people who'd already decided my value. That evening, I called an all-hands meeting. I owe you all an apology for today's disruption. I began facing my team. Family complications should never enter our workspace. Are you kidding? Called out James from development. That was the most entertaining lunch hour we've ever had. Your dad demanding 60% legendary. Laughter rippled through the room, breaking the tension. But seriously, I continued, this company is built on merit, innovation, and mutual respect. Those values don't change based on DNA or last names. We're the family we choose, and I choose all of you. The applause was genuine, warming something in my chest that my biological family had frozen solid. Later, as the office emptied and I worked alone in the quiet, I reviewed our accounts. The recurring payment to Sullivan's Hardware was gone, a monthly reminder removed. Their last statement showed inventory piling up, sales declining without their mystery buyer. Part of me ached for the man who'd taught me to use a hammer, who'd carried me on his shoulders through that same store. But that man had chosen pride over love, control, over connection. And the woman sobbing about church reputation had picked appearances over her daughter's achievements. Working late again. David from the gym had started working for us, heading up facilities. Want me to grab you dinner? I'm good, thanks. Just wrapping up some old business. He paused at the door. For what it's worth, we all think you handled that incredibly well. My parents disowned me for being gay. I know how much family rejection burns. Does it get easier? Different, he said after thinking. The pain transforms into something else. Freedom, maybe. Or just acceptance that some people's love comes with terms and conditions we can't meet. After he left, I pulled up Marcus's LinkedIn. Already updated with a vague consulting role, no mention of Goldman Sachs. The $50,000 I'd given him had probably bought that fiction. I wondered if he felt any guilt if stealing from his sister registered as wrong in whatever moral framework he'd built. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, then recognized Uncle Robert's area code. Your parents are telling everyone you've lost your mind with success. Martha's organizing a prayer circle. Just thought you should know the narrative they're spinning. I deleted the message without responding. Let them pray. Let them gossip. Let them create whatever story helped them sleep at night. I had a company to run, innovations to develop, and a life to live without their approval or acknowledgement. Success, I was learning, wasn't just about building something from nothing. It was about surviving the people who'd rather see you fail than admit they were wrong. And if that meant being the villain in their story while being the hero in my own, I could live with that plot twist. The office was peaceful in the evening light, San Francisco's skyline glittering through our windows. Somewhere in Sacramento, my parents were probably rallying the family troops, painting me as the ungrateful daughter who'd hidden her success out of spite. Let them. I had work to do, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly free to do it. Following my parents home had been a mistake. I knew it the moment I parked outside the modest 2-story house, where I'd learned to ride a bike, where I'd coded my first program in the basement, where dreams went to die under the weight of practical expectations. But something masochistic in me needed to try one more time. The doorbell felt heavier than it should. Dad answered, his face shifting from surprise to calculation in seconds. Come to apologize. He stepped aside, letting me enter. The house smelled of pot roast and disappointment. Mom appeared from the kitchen, dish towel in hand. Polly, we weren't expecting you. I know, after today, I thought we should talk. Really talk. We sat in the living room, the same floral couch from my childhood, sagging under the weight of unspoken grievances. Dad took his recliner, his throne, while Mom perched on the edge of her seat like a bird ready to flee. "I want to understand," I began carefully. "Help me understand why my success makes you so angry." "Success." Dad laughed, but it was sharp bitter. "You call lying to your family success, hiding behind shell companies, making us look like fools." "The anonymous orders were meant to help, to control," he corrected. "You wanted us dependent on your charity, wanted to play savior while we scraped by thinking we were making it on our own merit." The irony of him wanting credit for surviving on anonymous charity wasn't lost on me, but I kept that observation to myself. "Let's discuss something more productive," Mom interjected in her librarian voice, the one that brooked no argument. "Your future." "My future's pretty set. The company's growing. We're about to expand internationally." "That's the problem," Dad interrupted, leaning forward. "You're 26 years old, Polly. What do you know about running an international company? You need guidance. Real leadership." "Is that why you demanded 60%? "I've been thinking about it more," he continued as if I hadn't spoken. 60% is letting you off easy. You should sign it all over, put it in a trust. Let me and Marcus run things properly while you take a role more suited to your experience." "Marcus, the one who committed corporate espionage, allegedly," Mom said quickly, "and only because you drove him to desperation with your showing off." I stopped breathing deeply. What role would be suited to my experience? "Junior developer," Dad said magnanimously. "Maybe customer service, something where you can learn proper business practices." The room spun slightly. They wanted me to hand over my $20 million company to my criminal brother and my hardware store father, to return to entry level in my own company. And if I refuse, Mom's face hardened. "Then you're no longer welcome in this family. We'll have no choice but to protect ourselves legally." "Legally from what?" Dad stood walking to the antique desk where he'd once helped me with algebra homework. He pulled out a folder thick with documents. "We've consulted with Harrison and Associates, intellectual property lawyers. Since you developed this software while living under our roof using electricity, we paid for food, we have grounds for ownership claims. I was 21, an adult, and you kicked me out before I wrote a single line of production code." "Prove it," he challenged. "Prove you didn't start this while eating our food using our internet. Prove your inspiration didn't come from watching me run Sullivan's hardware all those years. You want to claim that my AI-powered inventory management system was inspired by watching you manually count hammers." His face flushed. "Don't mock me, young lady. I built a business that supported this family for 30 years. A business currently drowning without anonymous orders propping it up. I shot back past caring about diplomacy." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's face went white, then red. "Get out," she whispered. "Get out of this house." "Grace, wait," Dad commanded. "She needs to hear the rest." He pulled out another document, this one with my photo attached. My stomach dropped as I recognized it a screenshot from the TechCrunch article. "We've also been in touch with reporters. Amazing how interested they are in the real story of quantum logic solutions. The daughter who abandoned her family, who hid millions while her parents struggled, who sent anonymous orders like we're her charity case." "You wouldn't. Sign over the company or we'll destroy your reputation. Every tech blog, every industry publication will know what kind of person you really are. The heartless daughter who let greed corrupt her soul." I stared at these strangers wearing my parents' faces. The man who taught me to ride a bike was blackmailing me. The woman who'd read me bedtime stories was choosing extortion over love. "I need time to think." I managed my voice surprisingly steady. "You have 48 hours, Dad said, mimicking Richard Blackstone's deadline from years ago. "After that, we file papers and start making calls." I stood on shaking legs, gathering my purse and what remained of my dignity. At the door, desperation made me turn back one last time. "I've been paying your mortgage," I said quietly. "The mysterious accounting error that reduced your payments last year, that was me. The bulk orders from Sullivan's me. The anonymous donation that kept the library open when the city cut funding, also me." Their faces showed no surprise. They'd known. Of course they'd known. "All of it ends tonight. Every payment, every order, every penny of support. You want to destroy me, fine. But you'll do it while your business fails and your house forecloses." "You wouldn't dare," Mom gasped. "I was willing to support you forever, no questions asked, no credit needed. All I wanted was to build something meaningful, but you'd rather have nothing than see me succeed on my terms." Dad's mask finally slipped, revealing raw fury. "You think you're so special, so brilliant. You're nothing but a selfish brat who got lucky with timing. When the tech bubble bursts, you'll come crawling back." "Maybe," I conceded. "But I'll crawl to friends who supported me, not family who tried to steal from me." I left them standing in their doorway, backlit by the warm glow of a house that would soon face foreclosure without my intervention. The drive back to San Jose was a blur of tears and trembling hands. Amit called twice, but I let it go to voicemail. At home, I sat with my laptop fingers hovering over keys that could end everything. One by one, I terminated every anonymous support system I'd built. Sullivan's hardware monthly orders, canceled. Mortgage payment supplement, terminated. Library donation fund, closed. Even the college fund I'd started for Marcus's future kids, dissolved. Each cancellation felt like cutting a thread that had connected me to who I used to be. By dawn, every financial tie was severed. Then I did something else. I called my lawyer not to fight their ridiculous claims, but to document everything. The timeline of my company's development all after they'd kicked me out the theft by Marcus criminal charges, now definitely being filed, and their attempt at extortion recorded on my phone, though they didn't know that. "They can't actually win," my lawyer assured me. "Their claims are baseless, but they can make noise damage your reputation during a critical growth period." "I know," I said quietly. "That's why I'm not fighting, I'm just protecting myself." The 48 hours passed in a haze of legal prep and company damage control. When the deadline came and went without my capitulation, true to their word, my parents acted. But I was ready. For every twisted story they tried to plant, I had documentation. For every claim of theft, I had receipts showing my support. For every accusation of abandonment, I had emails begging for reconciliation they'd rejected. The tech community, it turned out, understood complicated family dynamics better than most. The story that emerged wasn't of a heartless daughter, but of a young entrepreneur who'd succeeded, despite family sabotage, who'd supported those who rejected her, who'd chosen grace until forced to choose survival. "Your parents sound toxic as hell," one prominent investor told me over coffee. "The fact you still tried to help them says everything about your character." But character didn't ease the pain of orphaning myself by choice. Late at night, I'd stare at old family photos wondering when love had become so conditional, when success had become something to punish rather than celebrate. The ultimatum they'd given me wasn't really about the company. It was about control, about maintaining a hierarchy, where I stayed beneath them, grateful for scraps of approval that would never come. They demanded I choose between my dreams and their love. The cruelest part, it wasn't even a choice. Their love had been withdrawn years ago. All I was losing was the illusion that it might return. "Get out, you lowlife!" The words hung in the air like shattered glass, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. Dad's face had turned an alarming shade of purple veins bulging at his temples as he stood in the doorway of my childhood bedroom. Behind him, Mom sobbed theatrically, clutching her chest as if my success had given her a heart attack. "Frank, please," I said calmly, folding my old Stanford hoodie into a box. "I'm just collecting my things." "Your things," he laughed bitterly. "Nothing in this house is yours. You gave up any claim when you chose to become whatever you are now." a successful businesswoman. A liar, Mom shrieked from the hallway. A manipulative, heartless liar who played puppet master with our lives. I taped the box shut, surveying the room one last time. Swimming trophies from high school still lined the shelf. Academic achievement awards gathered dust. Photos of a happier family, or maybe just a family better at pretending, smiled from frames I wouldn't be taking. The anonymous orders to Sullivan's Hardware, I said, quietly lifting the box. They totaled $800,000 over 2 years. That's what kept you afloat when Big Mart moved in. Lies, Dad spat, but his eyes flickered with recognition. The mortgage modification that lowered your payments, I paid the difference directly to the bank. $43,000 to keep you from foreclosure. Stop it, Mom whimpered. The library renovation that saved Grace's job, the sudden grant from an arts foundation. That was me. Every penny. Enough! Dad roared, slamming his fist against the doorframe. You think throwing money at us makes you superior, makes up for the humiliation, the shame. I think, I said slowly, it makes me someone who loved you even when you couldn't love me back. What happened next occurred in slow motion. Dad grabbed the box from my hands, hurling it down the stairs. The contents scattered yearbooks, childhood journals, coding notebooks from my first programming attempts. Pages fluttered like dying birds. There's your past, he snarled. Take it and get out. Don't ever come back. You're not our daughter. Our daughter would have respected us, consulted us, included us, not built some empire on deception. I descended the stairs, gathering what I could. My first coding notebook had landed in the entryway, pages bent but intact. Inside, teenage handwriting documented my dreams. Build something that matters. Help Dad store. Make Mom proud. You were never supposed to succeed, Mom said suddenly, her voice strange and distant. We had plans. Marcus would be the success. You'd marry, well, give us grandchildren, stay close. Normal things. Safe things. I'm sorry I disappointed you by exceeding expectations. Disappointed. She laughed high and sharp. You destroyed everything. Marcus is in jail because of you. Our business is failing because of you. Everyone knows what you really are now. What I really am, I repeated, standing with my salvaged belongings, is done. Done trying to earn love that comes with terms and conditions. Done apologizing for success you can't celebrate. Done pretending we're a family when we're just strangers with shared DNA. I walked to the door, pausing at the threshold of the house that had shaped me, limited me, and ultimately freed me by rejecting me. The payments stopped tonight, I said without turning. All of them. The mortgage, help, the anonymous orders, everything. You want to stand on your own? Here's your chance. You can't. Mom's panic was real now. We'll lose everything. You already lost everything that mattered, I replied. You just didn't notice because you were too busy counting grievances. Dad's final words chased me to my car. Don't come crawling back when your company fails, when reality hits and you realize what you've thrown away. We won't be here. Promise, I whispered to myself, starting the engine. The drive to San Jose had never felt longer. I pulled over twice, body shaking with adrenaline and grief. The third time, I stopped at an overlooked city, lights glittering below like earthbound stars. My phone buzzed with messages from my team, checking in after the day's drama. But one message stood out. Unknown number, clearly Mom's burner phone. I'm proud of you. 3 words. That's all I'd wanted for 5 years. 3 words that could have changed everything if they'd been spoken publicly, proudly, honestly. Instead, they came as a secret, a whisper in the dark, immediately followed by, "This isn't from me. Delete this." I screenshot the messages before deleting them. Evidence that somewhere beneath the anger and embarrassment, my mother knew the truth. But knowledge without courage was just another form of cowardice. Back in my car, I made 2 calls. First to my accountant, confirming all family-related payments were terminated. Second to Rosa. "Hey boss, you okay? Amit told us about the lawyer situation." "I need you to do something for me," I said, voice steadier than I felt. book movers for tomorrow. I want everything from my apartment relocated to storage. And find me a realtor in Florida. Florida like vacation, Florida. Like New Life, Florida. I've been looking at properties in Naples, beach houses, fresh start territory. But the company goes remote. We've proven it works. I'll fly back for critical meetings, but I need distance. From your family. From ghosts, I corrected. From the temptation to drive past their house, check their business records, keep rescuing people who see me as the villain. Rosa was quiet for a moment. My mom kicked me out for dating women. I moved to Portland for 3 years. Best decision I ever made. Did you reconcile? On my terms after she did the work, but the distance that saved me. Gave me room to become who I was meant to be without daily reminders of who they needed me to be. After we hung up, I sat in darkness, city lights blurring through tears. I finally let fall. I'd built a $20 million company, but I'd have traded it all for parents who could simply say, "We're proud of you," without conditions, without secrecy, without shame. But that was the child's dream. The adult's reality was sharper, cleaner. Some people's love is toxic. Some families are prisons. And sometimes the only way to honor where you came from is to leave it behind. I drove home, not to my childhood home, never again, but to my apartment, where boxes would soon hold my life, where plans for a beach house represented more than luxury. They represented liberation. My phone buzzed once more. Dad's official number, key under the mat if you come to your senses. I blocked the number without responding. There was no key that could unlock what we'd broken, no mat wide enough to sweep this under, only the clean break of a daughter choosing herself over the family that could never choose her. In my apartment, I opened my laptop and pulled up the Florida listings. A 4-bedroom house caught my eye, Spanish tile, private beach access, home office overlooking the Gulf. The listing called it perfect for new beginnings. I submitted an offer at asking price. Cash purchase, quick close. The seller accepted within hours. By dawn, I dismantled my life in California with surgical precision. Movers, scheduled flights, booked company, restructuring planned. 5 years of trying to stay close enough to matter, and it had only taught me that distance wasn't measured in miles, but in mismatched values and incompatible dreams. The sun rose over Silicon Valley one last time as I sat surrounded by boxes, each one a choice to stop living in the shadow of others' expectations. Somewhere in Sacramento, my parents were waking up to consequences they'd demanded. The hardware store would struggle without anonymous bulk orders. The mortgage would reassert itself without supplementation. The narrative of the ungrateful daughter would echo in an empty house they might not keep. But that wasn't my story anymore. My story was sunrise over ocean waves, building a business without apology, creating a life without permission. My story was choosing myself after years of not being chosen. The movers would come in 6 hours. Florida waited with promises of salt air and fresh perspectives. And for the first time since dropping out of Stanford, I felt truly free. Not from family that grief would travel with me, but from the obligation to keep auditioning for love that should have been unconditional. Some exits are endings, others are beginnings dressed in departure's clothes. As I sealed the last box, I knew which one this was. The lowlife daughter was dead, killed by the very words meant to wound her. What remained was someone harder, cleaner, realer. Someone who'd learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is walking away from those who can only love you, broken small and begging for acceptance that will never come. The highway stretched before me like a promise, every mile between San Jose and Naples, feeling like shedding old skin. My Honda was packed with essentials while a moving truck followed 2 days behind. The metaphor wasn't lost on me, racing ahead of my old life, hoping distance could outrun disappointment. I'd planned to drive straight through, fueled by righteous anger and gas station coffee. But somewhere in Arizona, exhaustion hit like a wall. The roadside motel was nothing special. Faded neon, suspicious stains, vending machine dinner. But it gave me space to think without Silicon Valley's shadow. "You actually did it," Amit said when I checked in via video call. "The whole team's buzzing. Remote-first quantum logic. It's revolutionary." "It's necessary," I corrected, sitting on the questionable bedspread. "How's everyone handling the transition?" "Better than expected. Rosa's already planning team retreats in Florida. David's jealous of your beach situation. And the clients, Polly, they love it. 3 new contracts came in just today. Something about us being forward-thinking and adaptive." Forward-thinking. If only they knew I was running from ghosts, not toward innovation. Any word from... I couldn't finish the sentence. "Your lawyer forwarded some threats from their attorney. Baseless stuff. Harrison and Associates backed off once they saw our documentation. Turns out extortion isn't a great legal strategy." "And Marcus?" "Still in custody. Trial's set for next month." We discussed logistics until my eyes grew heavy, but sleep brought dreams of childhood birthdays and hardware store aisles of a father's pride that had mutated into possession, a mother's love that curdled into control. Day 2 took me through Texas, where everything felt bigger except my problems. By Louisiana, I'd stopped checking my phone for messages that wouldn't come. The Florida state line felt like crossing into another world, palm trees replacing possibilities, ocean air promising rebirth. The beach house exceeded every photo. Spanish tiles gleamed in afternoon sun. Bougainvillea climbed white walls. The office windows framed endless Gulf views. But it was the silence that struck me most. No family drama, no disappointed sighs, just waves keeping time. "Welcome to Naples," the real estate agent said, handing over keys that felt heavier than they should. "Fresh start." "Something like that." She smiled knowingly. "You'd be surprised how many tech folks end up here, running from something or towards something, sometimes both." I spent the first night on the deck, laptop open, but ignored watching sunset paint the sky in shades of forgiveness I wasn't ready to feel. Every notification made my heart race. Would they find a way past my blocks? Would some flying monkey relative breach my defenses? But the messages were all business. Contracts to review, code to approve, a company that thrived on merit rather than blood, choosing competence over chromosomes. The workspace is incredible. I told my laptop screen during our Monday morning all hands. Palm trees swayed behind me as 23 faces smiled from their own chosen locations. "Is that really your office view?" James asked enviously. "Every day," I confirmed, angle adjusting to showcase the ocean, though I promised to stay focused during meetings. "Please don't," Caroline laughed. "Living vicariously through your beach life is my new hobby." We fell into rhythm quickly. Morning calls with East Coast clients, afternoon coding sessions, evening walks where pelicans judged my life choices less harshly than parents ever had. The company flourished with newfound flexibility, team members reporting higher satisfaction and productivity. But success couldn't fill the family-shaped hole in my chest. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to share good news before remembering there was no one to call. A client's praise would trigger muscle memory of seeking parental approval that would never come. 3 weeks in the local news broke my peace. Beloved Sacramento hardware store facing closure after 30 years of service. Dad's face filled my screen, aged 10 years in 3 weeks. He stood before Sullivan's hardware shoulders, slumped defeat etched in every line. Mom clutched his arm. Her librarian's posture crumbled into something fragile. Big Mart's competition was tough, Frank told the reporter, but we had guardian angels keeping us afloat, anonymous customers who believed in small business. When they stopped coming, he trailed off, jaw working around words. Pride wouldn't let escape. "It's heartbreaking," the reporter continued. "The community rallied with a GoFundMe, but it's barely touched what's needed. The Sullivan family also faces foreclosure on their family home, a double blow for these long-time residents." I closed the laptop, hands shaking. They'd created this reality-chosen pride over my help, but watching it unfold felt like swallowing glass. The little girl who'd played in those aisles while Dad rang up customers was screaming beneath my CEO exterior. "Don't," Rosa warned during our check-in call. "I can see you thinking about it." "I'm not." "You are. You've got that, maybe I should save them again look. Polly, they literally tried to steal your company. They called you a lowlife and threw you out." "I know." "Do you? Because knowing and feeling are different things." She was right. My head understood they'd burned every bridge. My heart kept trying to rebuild with ashes and good intentions. But hearts are terrible contractors creating structures doomed to collapse. That night I made a decision. Not to save them, that pattern had to break, but to save myself from watching their destruction in real time. I hired a service to filter my news feeds, blocking anything about Sacramento hardware stores or families named Sullivan. Digital bridges burned as thoroughly as emotional ones. New policy. I announced at our next team meeting. Every quarter we donate 5% of profits to small business support funds. Anonymous, distributed through established foundations. No direct involvement. "Inspired by anything specific?" Amit asked carefully. "By remembering why we build," I said simply, "to lift others even when they can't see the hands helping them rise." It wasn't salvation for Sullivan's hardware. That ship had sailed, hit an iceberg of hubris, and sunk in shallow waters of stubbornness. But it was something, a way to honor what that store had meant before it became a weapon against me. The beach house gradually transformed from escape route to actual home. I hung art from local galleries, planted herbs in window boxes, learned to paddleboard badly but enthusiastically. Neighbors invited me to barbecues, where no one asked about college degrees or family disappointment. "You seem lighter," David observed during a site visit helping set up my recording studio for product demos. "Florida agrees with me." "It's more than that. You're not looking over your shoulder anymore, not bracing for impact." He was right. 3,000 miles had given me more than distance. It had given me permission to exist without apology, to build without explaining, to succeed without diminishing myself for others' comfort. The sunset that evening was particularly spectacular, painting clouds in shades of release. I raised a glass of wine to no one in particular, toasting survival and separation, grieving what never was while celebrating what could be. My phone buzzed with a notification from our CFO. Revenue projections for the quarter exceeded every estimate. We were heading toward a $50 million valuation by year's end. The board wanted to discuss Series B funding this time with me firmly in control. Not bad for a lowlife, I told the waves, laughing at how thoroughly I'd transformed an insult into motivation. Somewhere in Sacramento, lives were changing because of choices made in anger. But here in Naples, other lives were beginning, starting with mine. The move hadn't been retreat. It had been advance in a direction they couldn't follow toward a future they'd never understand. The irony wasn't lost. I'd traveled 3,000 miles to find home in a place that had never hurt me, with people who judged me by my present rather than their prejudices. Every sunrise brought possibility instead of obligation. Every wave whispered freedom instead of failure. And if occasionally I woke at 3 a.m., wondering if they regretted their choices, if pride tasted bitter when swallowed with foreclosure notices, if Mom's secret message of pride haunted her as much as it haunted me, well, that was between me and the ocean. The only family disappointment here was teaching the local Pelicans to expect handouts during my morning coffee. They at least appreciated the gesture without questioning my motives or demanding majority ownership of my fish. 3 weeks in my Naples paradise, and life had found its rhythm. Morning paddleboard sessions cleared my head before East Coast client calls. Afternoon coding sprints on my deck made work feel less like obligation and more like artistic expression. Even the Pelicans had learned my schedule, arriving promptly at 7 a.m. for breakfast entertainment. "Revenue's up 30% this month," Amit reported during our Monday morning call. "That new feature you coded last week, GameStop wants to implement it nationwide." "Send the contracts," I said, watching dolphins play in the distance. "Standard terms, but give them priority support for being early adopters." Success had become routine, each victory building on the last. We'd hired 6 more developers, all remote, all thriving in our judgment-free ecosystem. The tech press had picked up our story, not the family drama, but the business innovation. Quantum logic solutions, proving remote work is the future, ran in TechCrunch. No mention of tears or betrayal, just clean capitalist triumph. I'd almost achieved peace when my carefully constructed filters failed. One news alert slipped through the digital barriers. Local business icon arrested for fraud. Marcus Sullivan, charged with corporate espionage. My brother's mugshot stared from my screen. The golden boy who could do no wrong looked hollow, his banker's arrogance replaced by something desperate. The article detailed his crimes against multiple companies, not just mine. He'd been shopping stolen data like a digital door-to-door salesman, leaving fingerprints everywhere. 5 to 10 years if convicted, the article noted. Sources say he's been denied bail due to flight risk. I closed the laptop, but the damage was done. The walls I'd built crumbled enough to let curiosity seep through. Against every instinct, I opened an incognito browser and searched my family's names. The results painted a picture of systematic collapse. Sullivan's Hardware announces closing. After 30 years, beloved Sacramento librarian forced into early retirement. Community rallies around local family-facing foreclosure. But it was the social media posts that cut deepest. Mom's Facebook, which I viewed through a friend's account, showed her unraveling in real time. Posts about ungrateful children and fair weather friends garnered sympathy from acquaintances who didn't know the full story. Dad had gone silent entirely, his last post 3 weeks ago simply reading, "Pride goeth before a fall. Wish I'd learned that sooner." "Don't torture yourself," Rosa warned when she caught me scrolling during a video call. "They chose this." "I know." "Then why are you crying?" I touched my face, surprised to find tears. Because knowing doesn't make it hurt less. They raised me, taught me to tie my shoes, ride a bike dream big, just not too big. And now they're drowning because they couldn't stand to see me swim. The irony was sharp enough to cut. My success hadn't destroyed them, their reaction to it had. Every anonymous payment I'd made had kept them afloat. The moment they demanded credit and control, the moment they chose pride over my support, they'd sign their own foreclosure notices. But karma wasn't as satisfying as movies suggested. Watching your childhood home listed on Zillow as a foreclosure felt like attending a funeral for people still living. Seeing your father's life's work liquidated for pennies while he stood by broken brought no joy. Even Marcus's arrest felt hollow justice served cold on a plate I no longer had appetite for. My phone rang, unknown number, Sacramento area code. I almost didn't answer, then recognized Aunt Martha's voice. "Don't hang up," she said quickly. "I'm not calling to guilt you, I thought you should know. Your mom's been hospitalized. Stress-related collapse. Nothing critical, but she keeps asking for you." "I can't, Martha. You know what they did." "I know." Her voice softened. "I know everything now. Frank told me about the anonymous orders the mortgage help. We all thought you were struggling while you were secretly saving them. I'm ashamed of how we treated you." "Are you calling to apologize or to manipulate me into coming back?" A long pause. "Maybe both, I don't know anymore. This family's torn apart. Marcus in jail, your parents losing everything you gone. We were supposed to be better than this. I agreed, until success became a sin and support became control. I offered them everything, Martha. They wanted to take everything instead. Your mother, she's broken Polly. Keeps saying she's proud of you when she thinks no one's listening. But she can't say it where it matters, because that would mean admitting they were wrong. Then she's choosing pride over peace, just like Dad. You're really not coming back. I'm really not. I've built a life here, a good one. Clean and honest and free from people who only love me small. Martha sighed. I understand. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Publicly, loudly proud. What you've accomplished is amazing. Thank you. I managed through fresh tears. That means something. After we hung up, I sat on my deck until stars appeared. The waves whispered eternal truths about erosion and time, how even the strongest stones eventually surrendered to persistent tides. My family was experiencing their own erosion pride, worn away by consequences, leaving only the raw truth of what they'd sacrificed for stubbornness. A notification lit my phone. Forbes had published their 30 under 30 list. There I was, number 14, smiling from a professional headshot taken in this very office. The write-up praised my innovation, my business acumen, my commitment to remote work culture. No mention of the girl whose father called her a lowlife, whose mother chose reputation over relationship. "Check the news," Amit texted. "You're trending." Polly Vanderbilt was climbing social media charts. My story, sanitized for public consumption, inspired thousands. Comments poured in from other entrepreneurs who'd faced family rejection, who'd chosen dreams over dysfunction. Support from strangers who understood that sometimes success meant surviving the people who should celebrate you most. But between congratulations and interview requests, one message stopped my scroll. "Saw your Forbes feature. We were wrong. I was wrong. Too little too late, but you deserved better. Love secretly, Mom." Another unknown number, another parent choosing shadows over sunlight. I screenshot it like evidence in a case I'd already won but couldn't stop prosecuting in my heart. "She's still hiding," I told the Pelicans during their morning visit. "Still can't just love me openly." They squawked agreement or maybe hunger. Either way, they were more emotionally available than my actual family. The day brought its usual success: 3 new clients, a feature in Wired acquisition offers. I declined without reading. But between triumphs, I monitored Sacramento's collapse, like watching a car crash in slow motion. The hardware store's liquidation sale, Mom's GoFundMe stalling at 12%, Dad photographed at a job fair, resume in hand, at 62. They'd called me a lowlife when I had millions. Now they had nothing, and somehow I felt like the villain for letting them experience consequences they'd demanded. Classic abuse dynamics. My new therapist explained during our video session. They conditioned you to feel responsible for their emotions, their choices. Your success disrupted that pattern, so they escalated. Now they're facing results of their own actions, but you're still programmed to feel guilty. How do I stop? Time. Distance. Repeatedly choosing yourself until it becomes habit instead of betrayal. That evening, I made 2 decisions. First, I doubled our company's charitable giving to small business foundations. If I couldn't save Sullivan's hardware, maybe I could save someone else's dream. Second, I blocked every possible avenue for family contact. No more unknown numbers, no more leaked messages, no more secret pride that wasn't brave enough to go public. To collapse. I toasted the sunset with expensive wine I'd never have afforded in my ramen days. May it teach lessons I couldn't. The Florida evening wrapped around me like the embrace I'd stopped expecting from parents. Somewhere in Sacramento, lives built on pride were crumbling. But here in Naples, a life built on persistence was rising. The 2 realities couldn't coexist, no matter how much the little girl inside wanted her daddy's approval and her mother's open arms. Success, I was learning, wasn't just about building something from nothing. It was about surviving the people who'd rather see you fail than admit they'd misjudged your potential. It was about choosing your own definitions over their limitations. The Pelicans settled for the night as stars emerged over calm waters. My phone buzzed with congratulations and opportunities, while my childhood home sat empty on the market. Marcus faced trial while I faced a future unlimited by their expectations. The collapse was complete not just of their finances, but of the fiction that DNA meant destiny. We were strangers now, separated by more than miles. They'd chosen their path lined with pride and paved with stubbornness. I'd chosen mine, built on code and courage, leading to horizons they'd never see. And if that made me a lowlife in their eyes, I'd wear the title like a badge of honor. Better a successful lowlife than a failure at fitting into boxes too small for dreams. The call came at 6 a.m. 3 days after my Forbes feature went viral. My phone lit up with a New York number I didn't recognize, but the voice was unmistakable Jane Chen, editor-in-chief of Tech Entrepreneur magazine. "Polly, I hope I'm not calling too early. I'm in Singapore and time zones are a nightmare." "I'm always up early," I said, already padding to my office. "What can I do for you?" "It's more what we want to do for you. We're featuring you on next month's cover. The Dropout Who Built an Empire, How Polly Vanderbilt Revolutionized Remote Work. Can we schedule an interview?" Cover story. The same magazine I'd hidden in my backpack at Stanford, dreaming of someday building something worthy of their pages. Now they wanted my face on newsstands nationwide. I'd be honored. The interview happened 2 days later, Jane flying to Naples personally. We talked for hours on my deck, diving deep into the technical innovations, the business model, the future of work. She carefully avoided family questions until the very end. "Your bio mentioned Stanford dropout, but not much else about your background. Care to elaborate?" "I come from small business owners," I said carefully. "My father ran a hardware store. That's where I first noticed inventory inefficiencies that sparked Quantum Logic's core concept." True enough to print, vague enough to protect, but Jane was sharper than that. "Hardware stores are struggling nationwide. Is your father still operating?" "No comment on family business," I said firmly. She nodded, respecting the boundary. "Let's talk about your charitable foundation instead." The photo shoot was surreal. Professional makeup artists transforming my beach casual look into power CEO polish. Wardrobe stylists debating between approachable genius and force of nature. We settled on simple elegance, a white blazer against the ocean backdrop code visible on my laptop screen. "You're a natural," the photographer said. "Most tech CEOs freeze up. You look like you belong here." Because I'd earned it, I thought. Every pixel of this moment paid for in sleepless nights and rejected pitches. "The article hits stands in 2 weeks, Jane promised as her team packed up. "Prepare for your life to change." More than building a $20 million company. That was business success. This is cultural impact. You're about to become the face of a movement. She was right. The magazine leaked the cover early and social media exploded. Dropout CEO trended for 3 days. LinkedIn crashed my inbox with connection requests. Competitors suddenly wanted friendly chats about potential partnerships. But it was the hometown reaction that cut deepest. "Have you seen this?" Rosa forwarded a link during our morning call. The Sacramento Bee had picked up the story. Local Stanford dropout makes tech entrepreneur cover. The article was brief, factual, but the comments section was a battlefield. Some celebrated a hometown hero. Others, clearly fed information, painted me as an ungrateful daughter who'd abandoned struggling parents. Then came the screenshot that made my blood boil. Frank Sullivan identified as the entrepreneur's father, being interviewed on local morning news. He sat in what was clearly a borrowed suit playing the proud patriarch. "I always knew Polly had it in her," he told the anchor. "Taught her everything about business in my hardware store. Inventory management, customer service, cash flow, she learned it all from me." "You must be so proud," the anchor gushed. "Of course. We talk every week. She's always asking for advice, running ideas by me. The student has become the teacher, you might say." My laptop screen cracked under my fist. Every week we hadn't spoken in months. Advice. He'd called my life's work playing with computers. "Don't," Amit warned, reading my face through the video call. "Whatever you're thinking, don't." But the damage was spreading. Dad had created a GoFundMe linked to the interview. "Support the man who taught a tech genius." The description claimed he'd invested his life savings in my education, sacrificed everything for my success, and was now struggling because he'd given so much to help me build my company. "It's fraud," my lawyer confirmed. "Provable fraud. He didn't invest a penny. We have documentation of them cutting you off financially." "Let him have it," I said, exhausted. "Let him milk his 15 minutes. But Frank Sullivan wasn't done. As my magazine cover spread across newsstands, he spread across local media. Every outlet that couldn't get an interview with me settled for him instead. He spun tales of teaching me to code he hadn't funding my startup. He'd refused advising my business decisions. He demanded I quit. My favorite part, Rosa said, forwarding another clip, is when he claims the AI algorithm was inspired by watching him organize hammers. We laughed because the alternative was screaming, but the laughter died when cousin Sarah called. Polly, you need to know what's happening. Your dad's GoFundMe raised $50,000, but he's not using it for the house or the store. He's hiring a PR firm to manage his media opportunities. He's planning to write a book. A book. Raising a Tech Genius, a father's guide to nurturing innovation. He's shopping it to publishers claiming insider knowledge of your childhood and development. The violation felt like ice in my veins. Not content with claiming credit for my success, he was now monetizing my story, selling fiction as memoir. There's more, Sarah continued reluctantly. Your mom started a blog, Diary of a Tech Mom. She's sharing memories of your childhood that... Polly, she's rewriting history, making herself the supportive parent who encouraged your dreams. I pulled up the blog with trembling fingers, post after post of pure fiction. How she'd bought me my first computer I'd saved for it myself. How she'd driven me to coding camps they'd refused to pay for them. How she'd celebrated when I dropped out to pursue my passion. She'd sobbed about reputation. The comments were worse. Hundreds of parents seeking advice on raising the next tech genius, praising Grace's wisdom and sacrifice. She'd found the audience she'd always craved, built on lies about a daughter she'd thrown away. You have to respond, Rosa insisted. This isn't just family drama anymore. They're building careers on your name. But I was done fighting for truth with people who preferred fiction. Instead, I called Jane Chen. I've been watching the situation, she said immediately. Want to make a statement? I want to make a donation. $5 million to dropout entrepreneur programs, specifically for those without family support. Call it the Making It Alone Foundation. That's a beautiful response. Can I quote you? Quote, this success isn't inherited or taught at dinner tables. It's built by those brave enough to believe in themselves when no one else will. This foundation is for every dreamer whose family couldn't see their vision, who had to choose between approval and ambition. You're not alone. The announcement hit the wire services that afternoon. By evening, it was trending above my father's false narratives. Donations poured in from other successful dropouts tech leaders who'd faced family rejection. We raised another $10 million in 48 hours. The best revenge, Ahmed observed, is massive success. But it wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. Taking back my story from those who'd rewrite it for profit. Building something real while they peddled fantasies. The magazine cover arrived at my door in a protective sleeve. There I stood against the Naples sunset code visible on my screen eyes, focused on a horizon my parents could never reach. The headline read, Self-Made, the Future of Tech Leadership. Self-made. No borrowed pride, no claimed credit, no family folklore. Just a woman who'd built an empire despite those who'd tried to keep her small. That night, I hosted a beach barbecue for my remote team members who'd flown in for a quarterly meetup. We toasted marshmallows and market valuations, shared stories of obstacles overcome. David talked about his parents' rejection. Rosa described her chosen family, each of us carrying scars from those who couldn't love us successful. To making it alone, we toasted as stars emerged. To making it together. I corrected looking at these brilliant people who'd believed in my vision when my blood relatives couldn't. My phone buzzed with a final insult. Dad's book had found a publisher, a small press specializing in inspirational family stories. But beneath the notification was something better. 3 dropout entrepreneurs had already received full funding from our foundation. Young dreamers who wouldn't have to choose between family and future. You know what the magazine should have said? Rosa mused, wine-warm and philosophical. What? The daughter who built an empire. Despite her parents, then used it to help others escape theirs. Too long for a headline, I laughed. Truth usually is, she replied. The waves agreed, washing away footprints in sand, like time washing away the power of old wounds. Somewhere my parents were selling stories about a daughter they'd never truly known. But here, under stars and possibility, the real story continued, written by the lowlife who'd risen higher than their love could reach. The video call invitation came through official channels my lawyer, forwarding what he called the most interesting meeting request of his career. 15 family members wanted a virtual intervention organized by Aunt Martha and Cousin Sarah. The subject line read, "Family Reconciliation Discussion." "You don't have to do this," Rosa advised, reviewing the attendee list. "These people watched you get thrown out and said nothing." But curiosity won. 3 months after the magazine cover after Dad's book flopped, spectacularly turns out, lying about easily verifiable facts doesn't sell after Mom's blog got exposed as fiction by tech journalists who actually fact-checked they wanted to talk. I logged in from my office, ocean calm behind me. The Brady Bunch grid of faces that appeared looked like a casting call for suburban guilt. Aunt Martha commanded the center square. My parents flanked her like reluctant prisoners. Cousins, uncles, and aunts filled the remaining boxes, their expressions ranging from curious to uncomfortable. "Thank you for joining us, Polly," Martha began formally. "We've called this meeting because the family needs closure." Closure. I kept my voice neutral. Interesting word choice. "Let's not pretend," Uncle Robert interjected, his mortgage broker pompousness intact. "We all know why we're here. Your parents made mistakes, but this public feuding needs to stop." "I haven't publicly feuded with anyone. I've built a company and stayed silent while they sold lies." "About that," Cousin Jessica leaned forward, her pediatrician instincts kicking in. "We've been comparing notes. The stories don't add up. Dad and Aunt Grace want to explain." The silence stretched until Mom cracked. "We were hurt. Polly succeeded without us, hid it from us, made us look like fools. So yes, we may have embellished our involvement." Embellished. I laughed sharp and bitter. "You claimed you taught me to code. You said you invested in my company. You wrote a book about raising me that's complete fiction." "The publisher's threatening to sue," Dad muttered the first words he'd spoken. "Apparently fact-checking matters." "Who would have thought?" "Don't be smart," he snapped, then caught himself. The family was watching, judging. "I mean, I was proud. Too proud to admit you'd done it without me." Martha produced a printed stack of papers. "We've been investigating. Polly, these anonymous business orders, $800,000 worth, that was you?" I nodded. "The mortgage help, the library donations. All you." Another nod. "While they called you a failure and a dropout," the word was lowlife, actually. The family's collective intake of breath was audible through computer speakers. Even those who'd known pieces hadn't grasped the full picture. "Show them," Sarah urged. "They need to see." I screen shared my financial records. Every payment highlighted, dated, annotated. The room went silent as the numbers told their story. Support given while being spurned. Salvation delivered while being demonized. "My God," Uncle Robert whispered. "You kept them afloat while they tried to destroy you." "I didn't try to destroy her," Mom protested. "I just wanted her to respect us, include us, need us." "You wanted to control her," Martha corrected coldly. "Don't sugarcoat it now, Grace." The floodgates opened. Cousins shared their own observations, how my empty chair at holidays came with cruel commentary, how Dad had pitched my failures as cautionary tales while cashing my checks, how Mom's prayer requests painted me as a prodigal daughter living in sin and rebellion. "We believed you," Cousin Brian said to my parents. "Thought Polly was struggling, too proud to ask for help. Meanwhile, she was building an empire and secretly saving your asses." Language. Mom huffed, but her heart wasn't in it. "We owe you an apology," Jessica said firmly. "All of us who stood by and let them trash you, who believed their version without questioning it." One by one, family members offered variations of regret. some genuine, others performative, but the gesture mattered. The truth was finally centered in our family narrative. Then Dad cleared his throat. I suppose that is to say, just say it, Frank, Martha commanded. His face worked through emotions like a slot machine before landing on something raw. I was wrong, dead wrong, about everything. You're not a lowlife, you're everything I wished I could be, and that terrified me. The admission hung between us 30 years of patriarchal pride deflating in real time. I know, I said simply, but knowing doesn't undo the damage. Mom asked desperately, what would make this right? I'd prepared for this moment, documents ready. First, public retractions. Every interview, every blog post, every false claim corrected publicly. Second, cease all media appearances about me. No more riding my coattails. Third, therapy. Real therapy, not church counseling. Deal with why you needed to tear me down to feel big. And then we can be family again, hope-colored Mom's voice. Then we can see. Trust rebuilds slowly, if at all. I'm not promising anything except to stop actively avoiding you. That's fair, Martha declared before my parents could protest. More than fair, frank grace. They nodded, beaten down by truth and witnesses. But I wasn't done. One more thing, Marcus. He's still awaiting trial, Dad said quietly. I know, I'm not pressing charges on the condition he gets help, real help. Therapy, addiction, counseling, job training, the works. But if he comes near my company again, that deal's void. You'd do that after what he did? Mom's tears were flowing now. I'm doing it for the brother who taught me to ride a bike, not the one who tried to steal my future. That person might still exist under all the Goldman Sachs toxicity. The call wrapped with awkward promises to stay in touch and do better. I closed my laptop feeling drained but oddly lighter. The reckoning had come not through courts or revenge, but through simple truth-telling in front of witnesses. How do you feel? Rosa asked later as we debriefed over wine. Like I just performed an exorcism. The demons are out, but the house still needs cleaning. She raised her glass. To emotional demolition and careful reconstruction. The next weeks brought cautious progress. Dad's publisher-mandated retraction made small headlines. Mom's blog quietly disappeared. The family group chat, which I'd been excluded from for years, suddenly included me again, though I kept notifications off. Marcus wrote from jail, a real letter handwritten probably because attorneys vetted emails. It was rambling raw, but contained something I'd never expected: accountability. I was drowning and grabbed the nearest thing to stay afloat: you, the successful one, the one who escaped what I was too weak to leave. I'm sorry doesn't cover it, but it's where I'm starting. I filed it with other documents of this strange journey, evidence that people could change even if relationships couldn't return to what they'd never truly been. You know what's funny? I told my Pelican audience one morning. They spent so much energy trying to claim credit for who I became. But in a twisted way, they're right. I am who I am because of them, because I had to become someone who could survive them. The Pelicans offered no judgment, only presence. Much like my chosen family, the team that had believed in my vision when blood relatives couldn't see past their own reflections. The reckoning hadn't brought the movie moment of tearful reunions and instant healing. Instead, it delivered something more valuable: clarity. We all knew where we stood now, no more lies or delusions buffering the truth. My parents had chosen pride until consequences made honesty cheaper. The family had chosen comfort until discomfort became unbearable. And I'd chosen myself again and again until the choice became as natural as breathing salt air and building dreams on solid code instead of shifting sand. Forward. I told the sunrise, not back to what was, but forward to what could be. A relationship with family that might never be close but could perhaps be civil. A brother who might find redemption in rehabilitation. Parents who might learn to love the daughter I was instead of mourning the one they'd imagined. Or maybe none of that would happen. Maybe the reckoning was the ending, not a beginning. Either way, I'd spoken my truth in front of witnesses, set my boundaries in clear terms, and offered more grace than was required. The rest was up to them, and for the first time in my life, I was genuinely okay with not controlling the outcome. My empire was built, my chosen family was solid, my future was bright. Let them figure out their own. The legal documents arrived by courier on a Tuesday morning that had started like any other. I was reviewing code on my deck Pelicans, gossiping nearby when the doorbell shattered the peace. The package required signature formal and heavy with the weight of official business. Inside, my parents' attempt at reconciliation came with strings attached, legal strings wrapped in lawyer language, but clear in intent. They were offering to formally acknowledge my success, publicly support my business, and retract all false claims. In exchange, they wanted monthly financial support, healthcare coverage, and a percentage of future profits. They're negotiating forgiveness, I told my lawyer over video call, disgust and disbelief warring in my voice. It's worse than that, Harrison replied, adjusting his glasses. Page 12, subsection C, they're also demanding a seat on your board of directors. For Frank, rotating position between your parents. They claim it's to maintain family involvement in the family business. My family business, that they rejected, mocked, and tried to steal. The same. They've also included a fascinating clause about Marcus. He flipped pages. Upon his release, guaranteed employment at Quantum Logic at a senior-level salary, no less than $200,000 annually. I laughed until tears came, then laughed some more. The audacity was almost admirable. Even facing bankruptcy and humiliation, they couldn't stop trying to control my success. Draft a counteroffer, I said once I'd recovered. I'll give them what they actually need, not what their pride demands. The counteroffer was simple. I'd pay off their existing debts, mortgage, credit cards, the failed business loans. One-time payment to clear the slate. Additionally, they'd receive a modest monthly allowance enough for basics, not luxury. Healthcare would be covered through a trust. The conditions were non-negotiable. Complete no-contact order. No mention of me, my company, or any connection to my success. No media appearances, no books, no blogs, no casual name-dropping at church. They'd sign NDAs so comprehensive their own shadows would need clearance to follow them. It's generous, Harrison observed. More than they deserve. It's freedom, I corrected. Mine, not theirs. While awaiting their response, life continued its upward trajectory. We closed Series B funding at $100 million valuation. The team expanded to 50 employees across 15 countries. Forbes wanted a follow-up feature. TED Talk invitations piled up. But between triumphs, I monitored the family situation through Sarah's updates. The parents had hired new lawyers, ambulance chasers, who promised big payouts from ungrateful children. Uncle Robert reported they'd pitched their story to reality TV producers. Aunt Martha mentioned Mom's attempt to start another blog under a pseudonym. They're getting desperate, Sarah warned. Dad's been telling people you're mentally unstable, that success corrupted you. Mom's claiming you joined a cult in Florida. A cult of one impressive. Polly, I'm serious, they're escalating. She was right. The formal rejection of my counteroffer came with threats. If I didn't accept their original terms, they'd go public with the real story. How I'd stolen ideas from Dad's hardware store, how I'd manipulated and abandoned family, how my success was built on their sacrifices. Let them, I told Harrison. I'm done negotiating with terrorists even if they share my DNA. But Frank had one more card to play. The call came at 3 a.m. from the Sacramento County Jail. Your father's been arrested, the officer explained. Public intoxication and vandalism. He listed you as emergency contact. I'm not... He defaced a Big Mart, spray-painted, "My daughter owns a tech company" across their loading dock, then tried to break into what used to be his store, kept saying his successful daughter would bail him out. I hung up without responding. Let him sit. Let him face consequences without my intervention. But Mom wasn't done either. Her desperation took a different form, showing up at my Florida door at sunrise, having somehow acquired my address. "We need to talk," she announced, haggard and travel-worn. "We needed to talk 5 years ago. Now we need lawyers and distance. I'm your mother." "You were. Then you chose to be my enemy. You don't get to switch back because bankruptcy's uncomfortable." She crumbled on my doorstep designer purse bought during the brief GoFundMe windfall, clutched like armor. "What do you want from us? We've apologized. We've admitted fault. What more?" I wanted parents who could love me without conditions. That ship sailed, hit an iceberg, and sank. Now I want peace. Sign the papers, take the offer, and disappear. The offer's insulting. A monthly allowance like we're children. No involvement in the company we inspired. Inspired. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. You know what you inspired. The determination to succeed despite you. The strength to build without approval. The wisdom to recognize that DNA doesn't equal loyalty. Sign the papers or don't, but get off my property. She left in a rental car, but not before making a scene for my neighbors. The next day, local news picked up the story. Tech CEO heartlessly rejects desperate mother. They'd filmed her breakdown, edited for maximum sympathy. I responded with receipts. Every anonymous payment published. Every rejected reconciliation attempt documented. The full counteroffer released, showing exactly how generous I'd been to people who'd contributed nothing but pain to my success. Public opinion split predictably. Some sided with family values, unable to imagine cutting off parents. Others recognized the pattern of abuse, the attempt to monetize reconciliation. "You're trending again," Amit noted during our team call. "At least it's catchy." The final straw came when Frank, released on bail, did a podcast interview with a men's rights activist. He spun tales of being victimized by his successful daughter, claimed reverse sexism, and announced he was writing another book, When Daughters Become Tyrants, A Father's Tale. "Enough," I declared to Harrison. "No more offers, no more negotiations. Cut them off completely." What about Marcus? My brother's trial had concluded. 3 years probation, community service, mandatory counseling. He'd written again this time, showing genuine progress, discussing the therapy revelations about golden child syndrome and family dysfunction. Marcus gets a separate deal. Rehab support job training assistance, but no position at my company. He rebuilds elsewhere, proves himself without my name attached. And your parents get nothing. They made their choice. The legal documents I signed that afternoon were different from their demands. Restraining orders, cease and desist declarations, the formal legal equivalent of "leave me alone forever." "It's final then?" Rosa asked as we processed the paperwork. "It was final when they threw me out. This is just paperwork catching up to reality." That evening, I sat on my beach as sunset painted the sky in shades of release. My phone buzzed with business new contracts, team celebrations, opportunities that multiplied like my parents' lies never could. The empire I'd built stood strong, unshaken by their attempts to claim or destroy it. "You know what the saddest part is?" I asked the Pelicans. I would have given them everything. Not control, not credit, but comfort, security, a chance to enjoy my success without earning it. All they had to do was love me as I am. But they couldn't. Their love came with terms and conditions, purchase orders, and ownership claims. They wanted a subsidiary, not a daughter, a revenue stream, not a relationship. The offer they'd rejected would have given them dignity in defeat. The restraining orders gave them only distance. But that distance was what I needed, an ocean of it, legally enforced, emotionally necessary. To boundaries, I toasted the sunset with sparkling water. To the beautiful, necessary cruelty of protecting yourself from those who should have protected you. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, opportunities, growth. My company would continue innovating. My chosen family would continue supporting. My life would continue expanding beyond the small, bitter borders my birth family had tried to enforce. And somewhere in Sacramento, 2 people who'd had every chance would face the poverty of their choices. Not because I was cruel, but because I was done being kind to those who saw kindness as weakness, success as theft, and love as something to be leveraged for profit. The pelicans settled for the night as stars emerged. My empire glowed with possibility, while my parents' world shrank to the size of their stubbornness. They'd wanted to negotiate forgiveness to put a price tag on peace. Instead, they'd learned the hardest lesson of all. Some things can't be bought back once they're broken. Some bridges once burned light the way forward instead of back. And some daughters once called lowlife rise too high to ever come down to their level again. The courtroom in Sacramento felt smaller than my childhood bedroom, packed with reporters, family members, and curious onlookers who'd followed the saga through social media. I sat in the back row, having flown in against my lawyer's advice. Some disasters demanded witnessing. Frank Sullivan versus Quantum Logic Solutions had become the tech world's favorite family drama. My father, represented by a strip mall lawyer who'd taken the case for publicity, claimed intellectual property theft, elder abuse, and malicious abandonment. The charges were ludicrous, but he'd found a judge willing to hear them. Your Honor. Frank's lawyer began, voice dripping with false sympathy. My client gave his daughter everything. Life lessons, business acumen, the very ideas that built her empire. Now she lives in luxury while he faces homelessness. Harrison stood smoothly. Defense moves for immediate dismissal. We have documented evidence that Mr. Sullivan cut off contact with Ms. Vanderbilt years before Quantum Logic's founding. Furthermore, his claims of intellectual property theft are particularly amusing given his recorded statements calling her work playing with computers. Objection. The strip mall lawyer was sweating. Those statements were taken out of context. Then let's provide context. Harrison smiled, predator sharp. Exhibit A through Z, literally 26 pieces of evidence documenting Mr. Sullivan's rejection of his daughter, his attempted extortion, and his public defamation. What followed was the systematic destruction of every lie my parents had built. Security footage of them trying to steal my company, emails demanding controlling interest, the attempted blackmail. Dad's face progressed from red to purple, to a concerning shade of gray as his own words condemned him. Mr. Sullivan. The judge finally addressed him directly. Do you have any actual evidence that you contributed to Quantum Logic's development? Dad stood shakily. She's my daughter. Everything she knows. That's not evidence, Mr. Sullivan. That's entitlement. The gallery tittered. Mom, sitting behind Dad, dabbed at tears that looked real for once. Your Honor, Harrison continued, we'd like to present Ms. Vanderbilt's full documentation of financial support provided to her parents after they disowned her. The numbers scrolled on the courtroom screen. 800,000 in anonymous orders, 43,000 in mortgage assistance, 60,000 to the library that employed Mom. Gasps rippled through the room as the total exceeded $1 million. She gave us charity to control us. Dad exploded, lawyer grabbing his arm. She gave you lifelines while you called her a lowlife, the judge corrected coldly. I've seen enough. This case isn't just dismissed. It's an embarrassment to my courtroom. But the real drama came during the break. Frank, desperate and defeated, cornered me in the hallway. You've destroyed us, he hissed. Happy now. I'm free now, I corrected. You destroyed yourselves. Your mother's on antidepressants. I'm unemployable. Marcus might go to prison. This is what you wanted. I wanted parents who could love me without conditions. You wanted a daughter you could control. We both lost. His mask finally shattered completely, revealing not the hardware store owner who'd taught me to use tools, but a bitter man who'd mistaken ownership for love. You were supposed to need us, stay close, be grateful, not this. Not successful. Not superior. The word exploded from him like a confession. You made me feel small, Polly, my own daughter making me feel worthless. There it was, the root of everything. Not disappointment in my choices, but fear of my success. He'd needed me to stay beneath him to feel tall. I never tried to make you feel small, I said quietly. Your pride did that. I just tried to live. Before he could respond, commotion erupted from the courtroom. Marcus had arrived shackled, but somehow looking healthier than I'd seen him in years. Prison sobriety agreed with him. "Polly," he called out, "thank you for not pressing charges, for the rehab funding, for the second chance I don't deserve." "Earn it," I told him simply. "I will. Already started teaching coding to other inmates. Turns out I learned something watching you work after all." The final courtroom scene was anticlimactic. Charges dismissed with prejudice. Frank ordered to pay my legal fees, a symbolic gesture since he had nothing left. No restraining order needed. Defeat was its own barrier. Outside, Mom waited by a car I didn't recognize. Borrowed or rented like everything in their lives now. "I know you hate us," she said quietly, "but I need you to know something. That text I sent about being proud, I meant it. I've always been proud, just too poisoned by Dad's jealousy to show it. Being proud in secret is like being brave in hindsight. It doesn't count." "I know." Tears tracked through her makeup. "I chose wrong. Chose him over you. Chose reputation over relationship. And now I've lost both." "Yes," I agreed. "You have. Is there any way—" "No." The word was gentle but final. "We can't rebuild on a foundation of ashes. Take the memory of what we could have been and try to do better with whatever relationships you have left." I walked away, then leaving them on the courthouse steps. Harrison caught up briefcase swinging. "Feel like celebrating we just won everything. We won legally. Nobody wins when families implode." But there was one more scene to play. That evening, at a quiet restaurant in Sacramento, I met with the extended family members who'd attended the trial. Aunt Martha, Uncle Robert cousins, who'd watched the whole sad spectacle. "We failed you," Martha said simply. "Watched them poison every holiday with lies about you and said nothing. Chose comfort over truth. Water under burned bridges," I told them. "What matters is what happens next." "We'd like to stay in touch," Cousin Sarah ventured. "Not asking for anything, just family who actually acts like family." I considered it. These people hadn't thrown me out or tried to steal from me. They'd been cowardly, not cruel. There was a difference. "We can try," I conceded. "But I live in Florida now. My life is there." "Zoom holidays," Uncle Robert suggested with a tentative smile. "Maybe, we'll see." The flight home felt like shedding weight with each mile. Below America scrolled past a country built on reinvention, where orphaning yourself from toxic origins was practically a national pastime. My phone lit up with messages from my real family. Rosa reporting 3 new client contracts, Amit celebrating a breakthrough in the code, David sending pictures of the team dinner I was missing. People who'd chosen me, supported me, believed in me when DNA had failed. "How did it go?" Rosa asked when I called from the airport. "They lost everything, including the delusion they had any claim to my success." "And how do you feel?" I considered the question as planes took off around me, each carrying people toward or away from their own complications. Like I finally closed a chapter I've been trying to edit for 5 years. It didn't end happy, but it ended clear. They know exactly where we stand now. Which is nowhere. We stand nowhere to each other. And that's the most honest relationship we've ever had. The sunset over the Gulf was spectacular that evening, painting clouds and shades of forgiveness I didn't owe anyone. I sat on my deck laptop, opened a code that made sense in ways family never had, building features for companies that valued innovation over bloodlines. "You know what's funny?" I told my Pelican audience the next morning. "They spent so much energy trying to claim credit for my success. But in the end, the greatest credit they can take is that I succeeded despite them. That's their real contribution, being obstacles that taught me to climb." An email notification caught my attention. Marcus from a prison computer lab. "Passed my first coding certification. It's nothing compared to what you build, but it's mine. Earned honest. Thanks for showing me that was possible." I smiled, forwarding it to the rehab program coordinator. Maybe something good could grow from all this wreckage. Not reconciliation, that ship had sailed, sunk, and become a reef, but perhaps redemption for those willing to do the work. My parents would never do that work. They'd shown their truth in that courtroom pride so poisonous they'd rather lose everything than admit error. They'd live smaller, bitter lives now sustained by complaints instead of my charity. But that was their choice, as staying away was mine. To resolution, I toasted the sunrise with coffee. Messy, painful, necessary resolution. The pelicans squawked agreement or hunger. Either way, they were more emotionally consistent than family had ever been. I fed them fish and got back to building empires that no one could claim but me. The resolution wasn't happy, but it was complete. No more anonymous payments or secret pride. No more hoping for change from people committed to staying stuck. No more negotiating with emotional terrorists who happen to share my genes. Just forward, always forward. Building higher, reaching, further succeeding, louder than their doubts had ever been. The Lowlife daughter had become everything they'd feared, independent, successful, and free. And that was the greatest resolution of all. The sunset painted the gulf in shades of gold and possibility as I arranged place settings on my deck. Real china this time, not paper plates, a small symbol of permanence in a life I'd built from temporary things. The table stretched long enough for 12, though tonight we'd only need 8. Wine selection approved, Rosa announced, emerging from the kitchen with bottles tucked under each arm. Though I still say champagne would be more festive. This isn't that kind of celebration, I reminded her, adjusting the centerpiece of Florida wildflowers. It's just dinner. But we both knew it was more than that. Tonight marked 1 year since the courtroom finale, 1 year of chosen silence with the people who'd raised me. More importantly, it marked new beginnings for those brave enough to claim them. The first to arrive was Marcus, not in shackles or stolen suits, but in honest clothes, bought with honest money. His probation officer had become his biggest cheerleader after watching him transform from entitled banker to humble student. The coding boot camp he'd completed was just the beginning. Now he taught basic computer skills at the community center, paying forward what he'd learned. "Hey, sis," he said, simply holding out a bottle of sparkling cider, 18 months sober. "Proud of you," I replied, meaning it. We'd never be close too much water under burned bridges, but we could be cordial. He'd done the work to earn that much. Aunt Martha arrived next with Uncle Robert carrying a homemade pie that smelled like childhood Thanksgivings before everything went wrong. They'd become regular video call fixtures, rebuilding connection through pixels before attempting it in person. "Your mother would die if she knew we were here," Martha said, then caught herself. "Sorry, I shouldn't." "It's okay. How is she?" "Existing. They both are. Moved into a senior apartment complex, living on Social Security and stubbornness. Frank found work as a part-time cashier. Grace volunteers at the food bank she used to donate to." I nodded, feeling nothing. Not satisfaction at their fall, not guilt for my absence. Just nothing. The opposite of love wasn't hate, it was indifference, and I'd finally achieved it. Sarah and her new husband arrived as the sun touched the horizon. She'd sent wedding invitations to everyone, including my parents, but they'd refused to attend if I was there. So they'd missed their niece's wedding to prove a point that no longer mattered to anyone but them. "Thanks for the startup loan," her husband Jake said, shaking my hand firmly. "The food truck's doing amazing, already planning a second one." "Pay it forward when you can," I told him. "That's the only interest I charge." The final guests were the heart of it all. Rosa and Amit, my chosen family, who'd flown in for this dinner, and the board meeting tomorrow where we'd discuss our latest valuation, $200 million and climbing. They carried laptops even to social dinners, success and friendship intertwined in ways my birth family had never understood. We ate seafood and stories as the sky darkened. Marcus shared his students' victories, elderly people sending first emails, former inmates building resumes, kids discovering they could create instead of just consume. Martha talked about the family members still too proud to reach out, but who followed my success through news articles. Sarah showed wedding photos from the beach ceremony my parents had chosen to miss. "I have news," Marcus announced over dessert. Got a job offer, entry-level developer at a startup in Austin. They know my history, my mistakes. Want me anyway. When do you start? I asked. Next month. Fresh city, fresh start. Following my big sister's playbook, sometimes distance is the only way forward. We toasted his courage with raised glasses, the clink echoing across water that held no grudges, unlike people. I need to say something. Aunt Martha interrupted the comfortable chatter. What your parents did was wrong. How we enabled it was worse. You deserved better from all of us. This family failed you, and I'm sorry it took losing you to see that. Thank you, I said simply. Some apologies came too late to heal, but still mattered for the speaking. As dinner wound down and guests prepared to leave, each carrying leftovers and renewed connections, Marcus lingered. We stood at the deck's edge watching boats' lights dance across dark water. I've been seeing a therapist, he said quietly, working through why I became who I was, the golden child who could do no wrong until I did everything wrong. What have you learned? That being the favorite is its own prison. You escaped early, built something real. I stayed trapped until crime became my only rebellion. We were both victims of their limitations. You just handled it better. I handled it differently. Not sure about better. I cut them off completely. Which saved you. His voice carried hard-won wisdom. I've accepted I'll never have their approval either. Even broken and humbled, I'm still the son who embarrassed them. The only difference is, you knew that truth at 21. Took me until 32 in a jail cell. We hugged then carefully like people practicing an unfamiliar dance. Not the easy affection of siblings who'd grown up supported, but the cautious connection of survivors comparing scars. After everyone left, I sat alone on my deck laptop, opened tomorrow's presentation. 200 million in valuation, 50 employees worldwide, innovation awards lining my office walls. Everything my father had said I'd never achieve multiplied beyond his imagination. You did it, Rosa had whispered before leaving. Built a life so good they can't touch it. But that wasn't quite right. They could still touch it. Their absence was its own presence, a family-shaped hole nothing could fill. The difference was I'd learned to build around that absence instead of into it. Like a tree growing around a fence, incorporating damage into design. My phone buzzed with a notification, an unknown Sacramento number I almost ignored, then recognized the area code of the senior complex Martha had mentioned. I let it ring through to voicemail, then listened to my mother's tearful message. I know you won't answer. I know we ruined everything. I watch the news. See your success. And I'm so proud, Polly. So proud and so sorry. Your father's too stubborn to admit it, but he reads every article, saves every mention. We failed you, baby. We failed you and we know it, and we're sorry. I love you. I've always loved you. I just loved wrong. I deleted the message, but not before saving it to a folder labeled Evidence of Growth. Not theirs, they'd stay stuck forever, choosing pride over peace. Mine. Evidence that I could hear her pain without needing to fix it, could acknowledge her love without accepting its conditions. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, the board meeting about international expansion, 3 acquisition offers to review, a speaking engagement at Stanford returning triumphant to the place I'd left in seeming defeat. But tonight was for gentler victories, a brother choosing sobriety, an aunt choosing truth, a family rebuilt from volunteers instead of conscripts. I opened my laptop and began typing. To those wondering if success is worth losing family over, you're asking the wrong question. The question is whether staying small is worth keeping people who only love you limited. The answer, learned through pain, but earned through persistence, is no. Build your life so big that those who rejected you become footnotes in your success story, not chapters. Choose family who choose you back. And remember, sometimes the greatest gift your birth family can give you is the freedom to find your real one. To everyone who's been called a failure, a disappointment, a lowlife, this is for you. Build anyway. Dream anyway. Succeed anyway. not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. The view from the top is worth every relationship that couldn't survive your climb. And if you're reading this wondering whether to reach out to that family member you rejected, ask yourself, do you love who they are or who you wanted them to be? Can you celebrate their success without claiming credit? Can you apologize without expecting access? If not, your silence is kindness. Let them flourish in the freedom of your absence. The tech industry taught me to iterate, pivot, and scale, but family taught me to survive, rebuild, and thrive. Both lessons were necessary. Only one was given with love. Thank you for following this journey. For those asking what's next, Quantum Logic is launching a scholarship program for family-rejected entrepreneurs. Because success shouldn't require approval, and dreams shouldn't depend on DNA. Like this post, if you've ever been called too ambitious. Comment with your own story of building despite doubters. Subscribe to follow our international expansion. And share this with anyone who needs to hear that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you're building something from nothing. Remember, you're not obligated to stay small to make others comfortable. You're not required to dim your light because it blinds those who chose darkness. And you're definitely not a lowlife for choosing growth over groupthink. From my beach house office, where pelicans judge me less than parents did, this is Polly Vanderbilt, CEO of Quantum Logic Solutions, former family disappointment, current builder of empires. Thanks for believing in the journey. The best is yet to come. I hit publish, watching the post go live to millions who'd followed this strange saga of success and severance. Within minutes, comments flooded in stories of other builders who'd chosen dreams over dysfunction, who'd learned that sometimes loving yourself means letting go of those who can only love you broken. The moon rose over calm waters as my chosen family texted goodnights, and my birth family lived with choices they'd made in anger. Between those two realities, I'd built a third success that needed no one's permission, peace that required no one's approval, and a future bright enough to blind those who'd tried to keep me in the dark. To new beginnings, I toasted the stars with herbal tea. To the families we choose and the empires we build. To every lowlife who rises higher than high lives ever dared to dream. The notification counter climbed past 10,000 likes, 20,050. Each one a person who understood that sometimes the only way to honor where you come from is to go somewhere better. Who knew that DNA was just letters, not destiny? Who'd learned that the greatest revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's proving yourself right, then moving on to prove something else entirely. My empire glowed with possibility. My chosen family grew with every connection. My peace deepened with every sunrise that didn't require their approval to be beautiful. And somewhere in Sacramento, two people who'd had every chance were learning the hardest lesson of all. When you tell a dreamer they're nothing but a lowlife, sometimes they'll believe you just long enough to build a life too elevated for you to ever reach again. But that wasn't my story anymore. My story was tomorrow's board meeting and next week's expansion and next year's innovations. My story was every entrepreneur I'd fund who'd been told they weren't enough. My story was proving that families are built on choice, not chromosomes, and that the best beginnings often require the hardest endings. From my deck overlooking endless ocean, I closed my laptop and breathed salt air that tasted like freedom. The pelicans had long since gone to roost, but I stayed up watching stars that didn't care about my parents' opinions, waves that wouldn't stop for anyone's approval. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and greater successes. But tonight I sat with the quiet victory of surviving those who should have supported me, of building higher than their love could reach, of becoming everything they'd feared and more than they'd ever imagined. The lowlife had risen. The empire was built. The future stretched ahead, unlimited by their limitations, undefined by their definitions. And that was the greatest success of all.